Serious, dads who left and never came back. Why? We broke up due to her infidelity before finding out she was pregnant. She moved 2,000 miles away before we knew, and yes, paternity test taken. I'd very much like to be in my child's life, but she was not keen on having me around. At the time she was trying to rekindle things with an ex and generally do her own thing. She has since gotten married and had another kid. I figure this is probably a healthier environment for my child than having two parents constantly fighting. I've only gotten to see my child once. He is 8 now. I pay about $1,100 a month in child support. I don't know what she is telling my kid. He might feel abandoned. Maybe there's hope for a relationship with him in the future. He never left. She took their son and ran. Poor guy. My sister was married with 2 kids and felt trapped. So, at 33 my sister entrapped a 21-year-old at her work to sleep with her. She gets pregnant. Mission accomplished and her marriage is over. The 21-year-old helps her buy a bigger vehicle and after that, she moves across town and doesn't tell him. After their son was born she moved out of state and keeps moving around. When her son was around 8 I press her that he should know who his dad is. I didn't even know his name. She walks away and never speaks to me again. She is still skipping around the country, doesn't use her real name on social media and lives in constant fear he will find her. He never did anything to cause her to hide, other than she didn't want to share her son. She tells her son that she has always been, and will always be both mom and dad. So weird. It really wasn't fair to the dad and I wonder if he ever wishes he met his son. Or, if he tells his later romances that he even has a son. If my nephew is reading this, your dad never had a chance to even meet you. Holy crap, I fear for that kid. A girl I used to see socially when I would be home on leave stopped by my parents' house a while back with a 6-7 year. Dad answers the door, recognizes her slightly. She just says that was my daughter. They are both happy and healthy and I should know. He asks for some way for me to contact her. She says no and walks away. Gets in a car and drives away. Dad tried to get plate number but she was gone too fast. He couldn't remember her name. Waited a few weeks to tell me. So, I could be a dad. I dunno. For all you know she had the wrong address. Or just likes fricking with people's minds. I had a deadbeat dad with a twist if anyone wants to hear. Mom and dad meet on holiday in Israel. Dad is a proper stoner and is really into his nomad lifestyle. Mom owns her own business and hangs around with him for the summer. She gets home and finds out she's pregnant. She gets in touch with him and he lives with us for a few years until he goes on holiday for a few weeks. 20 years later, he gets in touch over Facebook. Hippie stoner is now a rich executive and feels bad about what happened 20 years ago. Pays my mom all of the child support she never got and they became friends. 7 years later, they're married again and I guess I now have a dad? I left my ex-girlfriend a few weeks after we found out that she's pregnant. I lived with her and her parents. She physically and emotionally abused me to a point where I wasn't myself anymore. I had to give up all my friends. I was only allowed to go with her and nowhere else. Found out she cheated on me but forced me to stay with her. She forced me to have sex with her. Otherwise, she said she'll kill herself and I was too young, 19, to realize what was happening at all. Only when I told my mother what happened in the 8 months I was with her, she had to pull me out of the relationship. She found a new boyfriend who she treats as his new father and my son is now 2 years old. I hope he's alright. A couple years ago I met my deadbeat dad when I was 25. Naturally I was full of questions about why he'd walked away from me and my sister when we were toddlers. Plenty of people divorce like my parents did, but not all dads move to Germany and disappear for a couple decades. Essentially, he was mad at my mom for divorcing him. He wanted to punish her by making her raise 2 kids alone without his help, to show her how good she had it before. Throughout the conversation, I picked up on some other reasons too. He didn't want to be a family man. He enjoyed living in Berlin through the 80s and 90s, partying and sleeping around. Didn't need a wife and kids slowing him down. And he had only married her cause she got pregnant with me. I had hoped for deeper, more significant reasons but it always comes down to mundane stuff. Petty humans being lazy. I have no experience with any kind of paternal abandonment, but Jesus Christ, this thread and the majority of the answers hurt my heart so bad in sadness and in anger. If it's any consolation, those that answered felt emotionally secure and open enough to share their stories, even if anonymously. These things hurt and the hurt sometimes never disappear, but we all learn to cope and grow from it eventually. I'm actually the child in the scenario. My mom and dad divorced before I was a year old. I was raised by my then 17-year-old mother. I knew who my father was and he made random appearances. I'm incredibly close to that side of my family. His sister, my aunt, helped raise me. In 2007, the year I graduated college, my father got clean after a lifetime of drug use, jail and general frick-ups. We talked and he basically said he felt like I'd be better off without him. I used to harbor so much pain and resentment, but now I understand. He was an addict. He didn't choose drugs over me like I had always felt. They were holding him hostage. I have a wonderful stepfather who taught me what a good man should be, and I am so grateful to him for that. He once told me that I should always hope for the best in people but don't expect anything from them. That's unfair to them to expect more than they can give. Just hope that he'll do better. I'm not angry or upset, and my father and I have a generally friendly see each other on holidays kind of relationship. My great-grandfather was a good man who wanted to be better than what he felt he was, but he was the son of a convicted murderer in a very small community in Depression-era Georgia, and he couldn't escape his last name. His son, my grandfather, was a brilliant young student, but he was told by the local committee that managed college funds there was no way a McCulloch was ever going to get a scholarship. So ultimately, I think my great-grandfather felt that, based on the toxicity of his own relationship with his father, the best thing he could do for his children was to extract himself. So he took a job as a prison guard in another county. Ultimately, he took a train to California with another woman. Once there he called his wife and said he was sorry for everything. And a few days later he finally succumbed to health issues relating to his service in the First World War, after he had left home. But before he went to California, his son went to a junior college in the same area my great-grandfather was working. Seeing his father walking toward him, he crossed the street to avoid him. He hated himself for it the rest of his life, and never knew whether his father had seen him or not. He never saw him again. That's sad for everyone. I actually asked my biological father this after he bailed, and I didn't see him for nearly 20 years until my older sister's funeral. I thought it would be easier for everyone. What he meant was it would be easier for him to divorce his kids along with his wife so he could run back to his rich family and pretend to be a childless bachelor enjoying his second adolescence. I didn't leave per se, but who knows what my soon-to-be 9-year-old daughter currently believes or will believe in the future. Maybe I'll get lucky, and she'll come find me in a decade, and then BSP. Anyhow, I started a messy divorce proceeding about 6 years ago when my daughter was 2. I fought long and hard to stay in her life, but my ex made it as difficult as humanly possible without physically moving away. There were allegations of domestic abuse, molestation, rape, etc., all without a shred of proof or corroboration. 2 years ago, after 4 years of fighting through professionally supervised visitation and repeated court appearances, I was finally awarded unsupervised time with my daughter. Faced with the unacceptable prospect of an actual father-daughter relationship, my ex somehow convinced the court that my then 6-year-old daughter had PTSD directed toward me and was suicidal at the prospect of seeing me. Mind you, I have her on video literally dancing in my living room the week prior. Since then her mom has thwarted all attempts at court-ordered reunification, and I haven't seen nor heard from her. I don't even know what she looks like right now. And NBSP. Like I said, I didn't exactly walk away, but for all I know that's the story my daughter is being fed. So, same difference. My father left when I was 8 and I did not reconnect with him until I was 22. He was always a heavy alcoholic but fell into hard drug abuse around the time he abandoned me. Heroin and crack turned him into a man that was not suitable for children. He felt that distancing his destructive ways from us would be best for my siblings and I. I will never forgive him for his actions, but he is now 7 years sober. Just in case there are dads in here that might be interested, I am a 47-year-old guy whose dad left my mom when I was 1 year old, mutually agreeably, to be with his new wife and never came back. He actually lived just one town over, and I spent my youth meeting people who knew my dad. I had one strange encounter when I worked at the video rental store, where he came in, told me his name and asked for a movie on hold. I was too nervous to say anything and I didn't want to start a scene there in the store, so I'm pretty sure he had no idea who I was. He paid child support on the reg, but other than that, no contact whatsoever. The thing I want any similar dads out here to know is this: your kids may have a different set of baggage than I do, esp if you left when they were older, but in my case I have no hard feelings. None. I had plenty of love and attention, and also plenty of conflict with male adults during my mom's dating phase. That crap fricked me up. But hearing stories about my dad to me is no different than hearing stories about a crazy uncle I've never met who lives in Mexico. My bio dad is not something I miss, or really even think about. I am a dad myself now and have come close to starting marriages with the wrong person many times. I totally get how that, coupled with an unplanned pregnancy, can easily happen. It could be me. I hate the idea that there might be someone out there who thinks I hate him, when that is not the case. I don't want to be the source of some stranger's apprehension, angst, regret, or shame when that is not my story. It pains me to think my dad has fear or stress about me. Disappear dads, do not assume the worst. Thank you for this. As a single mom, found out I was pregnant after the breakup. Ex wanted nothing to do with us. I really needed this. I have so much guilt over not giving my perfect baby a decent dad. Thank you for showing me that he can have enough love from just me. Don't know if this helps or not, but I have a stepbrother and I never meet my biological father. My mom and stepdad called it off a little after my little brother turned 5, but even in his absence he has helped and supported us. But even though we wish he was more around with us, he is not capable of doing so, for you see he and my brother are both autistic. Mind you, they are both high spectrum of functioning autistic. They are not able to express feelings to each other or others in general. It has been a struggle, but I think that people who cannot express their feelings have the biggest burden of all, because we need them to be there for us as if it was that easy for them to do, but it's not. Hope this at least helps a bit. I was a mental train wreck. I was abusive and neglectful. I suffered from serious depression and PTSD from my time in the military. My oldest son is on the autistic spectrum, and when combined with my own problems, there was no way I would have been able to give him the care that he needed. So I ran to the other side of the country. I don't regret leaving them. They were much better off with their mother, but I do regret not being there to see them grow up. I'm still in their lives, but not to the extent I'd like to be. Their mother is a narcissistic, evil, abusive, cheating W. She took them from me as punishment for not loving her after she broke me again and again. Now they live far away, being raised by a man she's only with because she knows I hate him, forcing them to call him daddy. I'm starting to get them more, but the time that they're away rips it into pieces. I'm sorry you're going through this. She's only hurting the kids. If you genuinely want to be a part of your children's lives, she shouldn't take that from you. Because I'd stayed so long for the kids, but the depression became so bad that I was actually becoming a bad role model. Now 4 years out, I have a great relationship with my kids. Best decision I ever made. I'm answering for my brother. She took complete control and ran off with his daughter to her ex-boyfriend. Now he's her dad, and whenever we ask to see her at CHH, yeah, you can see her, but don't bring your brother, and then she yells at him through text because he's not making an effort. He's exhausted. When it's her birthday or Christmas and he wants to buy her something, she'll text him she doesn't need you or anything from you, and on the off chance she'll let him see her, she'll say her ex, now fiance, is her dad in front of my brother. She's a headache. He pays 3x the child support and messages her all the time to see his daughter. Even her family thinks she's being an butthole. His daughter has no idea who he is, and she doesn't know who her baby brother is either. Because in order to become a good parent, you have to virtually divorce yourself from any and all selfish tendencies. You become one with your child. You literally live for them. It is daunting, frightening, difficult, frustrating, exhausting, and seemingly permanent. That's a lot to take on for anyone. Some people aren't up for it. Some people emotionally divest themselves but stick around because it's the right thing to do. Some people bounce completely. Some people engage completely. Any father understands why another father might do that. Many fathers could never imagine actually doing it though, because whatever negatives, challenges, and sacrifices are introduced into your life, these are outmatched by the flash of a smile when your child recognizes you, or the satisfaction derived from investing your time to mold a human being into a more perfect version of themselves. TLDR. Parenting sucks and is hard. Worth it though. I'm the daughter in this situation. My father was abusive, mostly emotionally, but sometimes physically. He had always wanted to leave when I turned 16. About 6 months after I did turn 16, he moved out after separating with my mum. We'd have on and off contact, but I would be the one to initiate it, but at the same time I would always be berated because I never tried hard enough, for it works both ways. He would always cancel on me when we would plan to spend time together, and I tried so hard to maintain some kind of connection, even though I knew it wasn't a good thing. But I just wanted my father in my life. But all he was bothered about was the trips to the pub he liked so much, and the rich girlfriend I wasn't allowed to be introduced to. But when my mum lost her job, and I needed some financial help to repair something that I needed to pass my diploma, he was working at the time. He called me a scrounger and he refused to help me. I figured that if he wasn't going to help his own daughter with probably about £30 that was needed to repair something, then he wouldn't want to help me in any other times of struggle. So after years of this charade, I decided to leave him. He tried contacting me, but I kept ignoring them until I got a new number. I did contact him once more since. I wrote him a letter saying exactly how I felt, and that he was dead to me. I wrote that for the closure. I've not wanted anything to do with this man for 5 years now, and I've never felt better. A male friend of mine was sleeping with a female friend of mine. We later find out she had a baby. She managed to keep the entire pregnancy a secret and everyone was like, WTF. She claimed she didn't know who the father was, which may have been true, but now he's almost 18 mths old and it's obvious who the father is. He's a dead ringer for my other mate. Same smile, same eyes, lovely little fella. Anyway, she doesn't want anything to do with my mate. He's tried setting up get-togethers, sending letters and presents for the kid, etc. But she has basically kept him a secret from the kid. She does have a partner now who seems to be a great father to the kid, so that is good. Anyway, it really tore my mate up. He tried to commit suicide by ODing, but a mate found him in time. These days he seems to be doing a lot better and is in a better headspace. I don't know if he wants to contact the kid later in life or not. He could demand a paternity test, but for whatever reason he doesn't. Not judging. He will have his reasons. My older half brother's bio father qualifies. He was dating my mom for a while in college, then broke up with her. Then she found out she was pregnant, but he didn't want to get married or try to make the relationship work because, frankly, their relationship just didn't work. He didn't want to be a father at that time, but he'd support her and wouldn't give up his parental rights until she found the right man to be a dad for his son. She did. My dad married my mom, adopted my brother, and they had a couple more kids together. My brother's bio father eventually also got married and had kids. They've been open to meeting my brother, but he has no interest. Our dad is the only dad in his life. Honestly, I can't imagine a scenario that works out better than the way it did. My family is awesome. When my parents started dating, my dad saw the kind of mother my mom was and seeing that convinced him he wanted to have a family with her. My brother's bio father did what was right, considering the circumstances. This is about my dad. He was an alcoholic and left my mum and I with all the debts. Tried to set the house on fire and after being done for arson, getting released from jail, continued to drink himself to death in a flat not 1 mile from where we lived with no effort to ever see me. He died alone in that flat and was only found several months after because of the smell. I don't hate the man. I pity him and I use him as a warning to myself on how to conduct my life and interact with my son. I will never treat my son like that and I will be eternally vigilant to not fall as he did. Technically wasn't there. Non-relationship drunken stupor 1-2 night-ish stand. Countermeasures failed. She informs me she's pregnant and in no uncertain terms will not get an abortion. familial pressure and religious reasons. I acknowledge her decision and my lack of choice in the matter. In response to her inquiry, I clearly inform her I will not be a father to this child and will not support my inability to have a decision in such a matter. Trigger warning, off the bat she threatens me with the state, to wit I inform her I will under no uncertain terms spend a good of our time in court on the matter. Months later she informs me she is giving the child up for adoption. Her family friends are unable to conceive and would make for a good home to a healthy baby. Obviously this requires the father, too, to legally give up rights to the child. I lawyer up and am reluctant to acknowledge legally in any way the child is mine. As such, paternity is not chemically established. The paperwork I sign is only valid in the adoption process. I'm doubtful because I do not expect her to go through with the adoption. The state requires the mother maintain custody of the child for a minimum number of days in what I speculate is a psychological manipulation to bond the mother-child pair. She has the kid. I, under duress from attorneys, sign the release forms. As soon as she's got them she declares she's not giving the child up for adoption. Surprise. 2 years later I get notice of an automatic process from the state triggering hearings and court proceedings to establish financial support. I lawyer up again expecting the worst. The mother closed the proceedings and removed herself from state support prior to proceedings. I have not heard anything since and have no inclination to meet or be a father to the child in any way. I fully expect sometime around driver's license or passport time that my name, which I do not know for certain, on a birth certificate will trigger some question and perhaps the archetypal "who am I" quest to begin. I will speak for my wife's dad. He was forced to leave because of religion. He got baptized Mormon right before he married. Soon after, with baby on the way, he didn't realize what he had gotten himself into. His coffee cups were being put out on the back porch. He was young and confused with this new religion in his life, just trying to make his then wife happy. He never left. He was later abandoned by his wife and child because of a religion. Fortunately, that little baby that grew up and is now my wife sought out her dad when she was older. They have a very happy and healthy relationship now. So I guess my point of this story is that not all dads that leave are bad and that good things can happen in the end. My dad was put in a position where he left and nearly didn't come back. Rewind to when I was like 10. My mom got paranoid of everything and was always pissed off with my dad. They got into a terrible divorce that landed in court for years. My mom started to claim that everything we did warranted full child support and refused to let us see him until the courts decided on what he was not responsible for. My mom went crazy and started line itemizing and coming up with crazy expenses, even including gas mileage and depreciation on her car to see her family. I went from seeing my dad on weekends, to once a month, to once a year, and then all the communication stopped. Come to find out, my mom would even return birthday cards and tell my sister and I that my dad forgot about us. All the while, she was hanging the divorce in the courts so he couldn't see us. After 7 years, my mom unexpectedly died of a heart attack in her sleep. We were obviously devastated. We had the wake and funeral and the family didn't even tell my dad. Turns out, my mom had another court appearance against my dad a week after she was buried. An uncle of mine went to court and told the judge and my dad's freaking lawyer about my mom's death. The lawyer then told my dad that the divorce case was dismissed because his ex-wife died. Could you imagine how that call went? So yeah, after years my dad was finally able to talk to his kids. Without a doubt, if my mom didn't die, I would never have seen my father again. So yeah, that's my story. TLDR, mom made it impossible for my dad to see us. She died unexpectedly and I got to see him again. Because I refuse to let my daughter see or hear us fight like that every day. I miss that little girl every single day. I kissed her on the head and told her I will always love her, and never came home. This breaks my heart. Because you and your daughter's mother couldn't get along doesn't mean you can't have a relationship with your daughter. You do not even have to deal with the mom. Take her to court. You'd be surprised it's easier than you think to get visitation if you really want it. Child support is so high it made surviving very difficult. Baby mom treated me like a babysitter and not the father. Got laid off and had to find work or else I'll lose my license and go to jail. Ended up taking up a job across the country. Baby mama got more spiteful. She completely cut off contact with me. Tried to send my family to my son's address, but she may have moved. Her phone number changed. Courts don't care unless it's about collecting my money. If I go back to court, I'll probably have to pay more child support. Life became a hard struggle the moment I became the wallet. I only hope one day I get to see my kid. I love him and miss him so much. Oh, Jesus, I'm so sorry. My husband's father left when he was 3 or 4. He left my mother-in-law with 3 little boys to run off and marry someone else. He never really explained why or apologized. The last time my husband saw him was probably about 16 years ago and his brother's funeral. I've never met him, my kids will probably never meet him, and I've only spoken to him on the phone once. It's interesting how situations like this mold people into who they are. I truly believe my husband is a great father because his was not. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.